Hello and welcome back to OT the podcast. We're here to talk about watches, time, and how to spend it. My name is Andy Green.
I'm all about spending it. My name's Felix Schultz.
Spendy shots over here. How are you, Felix?
Actually, I'm being pretty thrifty at the moment. It's that post-Christmas period where I maybe, spend a little bit too much on prezzies. So now I'm keeping it lean, fiscally speaking.
Very nice, very nice. Well, we've got a very, very exciting guest joining us shortly for a big chat, Mr. Ted Gushue, from many places, but most famously Type 7, Porsche's digital magazine. So we'll get him on in a moment. But before we do, have you been up to anything interesting?
Literally, he's from St Moritz at the moment. We called him from the Alps, from his James Bond-like lair.
The ambassador for St Moritz as well. Global ambassador. Not just, Europe or, Americas. He's the global ambassador, which is pretty cool. So we're going to talk to him. We're going to find out how that happens because, I want to be an ambassador for a place.
Yeah, I don't think it's officially endorsed by the diplomatic corps, but...
No, it is. It is. He's got a card.
Okay. Does that mean he has diplomatic immunity?
Yeah. Well, we'll find out. What have you been up to, though? Anything?
Look, I've been admiring your Photoshop work, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Tell me what you've done and tell me why you're sorry for it. I don't know.
Well, it's been a big week for the world. Big couple of weeks, big January for the world. I'm not sorry, but we did get Bernie Sanders memed up. I spent about 4 minutes on Photoshop creating a little bit of fun, which was received really well. Yeah, we're jumping in on it, joining the conversation. Got to play
social media manager, being part of the conversation.
We're gonna get in there. But yeah, it's been a big week of politics. Not that we talk politics that much, but we got to say there has been outrage on many fronts over Joe Biden's new Rolex. Yeah,
so, he's, in the camp, obviously watch nerds like paying attention to what politicians wear on their wrists, and he's sporting something pretty new. A Datejust, is it 41 or 4? I don't know, I can't
41,
remember. Datejust 41, probably a blue dial, smooth bezel, Jubilee bracelet.
Yeah, killer
choice.
Combo. People are outraged. It's ignoring the fact that the Rolex Day-Date is nicknamed the presidential watch or the president's watch.
Well, he doesn't even have a day-date. He's probably gone for steel.
He's gone steel. He hasn't even gone precious metal like, Obama and Trump definitely had. A bunch of precious metal watches. Not only that, he's like, nearly 80? I think he saved up enough to spend like 10 grand on a Rollie for himself.
He's also got a Speedy. He's got a Speedmaster that he's been seen wearing.
Famously.
And I think a Seiko chronograph as well. I think Nikolai on Instagram is very good at paying attention to the Getty photos. So if you care about that, maybe follow him. The other thing I think interesting about this is, like you've said, all these guys, they're like... I did a quick Google before of what a US senator makes, and apparently it's around 170, 200K.
Wow.
Just like a US, that's their salary. And I'm sure there's things they don't have to pay for and all that sort of jam as well. But so a lot of presidents have fancy watches. Like Bill Clinton has a lovely collection, including Langer and all this other stuff. But
heaps.
In office, he wore a Timex.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And so did George W. Bush. He had something very sort of everyman, he says in air quotes. Obama wore his Secret Service gift. So maybe Biden's mixing it up by just wearing a grown-up watch.
Look, he's just got a promotion. He's just won an election. He's the president of the United States. I think it's pretty fair. I think it's pretty fair to go out and spend a little bit. He's got a pay rise. He's treated himself. We all do it. Good on him. You know what else has caused outrage lately?
I like that you've gone, okay, Fox News, this is Andy Green's take. Good on him. Pipe down. Yeah. It's just a Rolex. It's not even a fancy one. It's not a Daytona.
Yeah, it's steel. He's got a steel Rolex. He didn't even get the fluted bezel. Come on.
I bet you, I 100% bet you that was a conscious decision not to get the fluted bezel because it's so much more blingy.
Yeah. Yeah, he's probably still waiting on a Daytona. Put his name on the list back when he joined the Senate.
Oh, wow. No, he could have got him a discount then. They would have, given them to him.
Yeah. He's the only reason he's become president is so that he can kind of flex that authority and get some steel.
I don't think that's
steel
true.
Rolexes. No, it's true. It's confirmed.
Okay,
I'm going to leak that to Fox News.
Jeez,
hey, speaking of steel watches you can't get, a watch you can't get you could never get. Now you can't get it. The Nautilus 5711 has been officially discontinued, Felix.
Oh, we should hold off on talking about this because of
it's a separate chat.
I think we've got a guest who might know a bit about it coming up, or maybe by the time you're listening to this, who knows how the internet works, and we might have already published it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how it works. I haven't checked the calendar.
Yeah. Either way,
maybe we won't.
Maybe we'll just cut this bit.
Maybe we've had that chat.
Yeah.
Breaking balls and dimensions.
Either stay tuned for our thoughts on this or listen to that episode for our thoughts on this.
We'll link it up either way.
But honestly, I think that's, inevitable is my sort of top line, but still a bit interesting, a bit noteworthy. Do you reckon we'll get a new one this year?
Perfect. Yeah, 100%.
They're not going to make us wait a year?
Yeah. Well, interestingly, I think they updated the movement like in 2019. So, really? Yeah, that's what I heard. I don't pay too much attention to Nautilus's, admittedly.
Why?
It's not the whole Nautilus collection either. It's just the steel.
Just that one reference.
Yeah, and I think there's a bit of fake news going around of like a titanium one.
Yeah, I've seen that.
White gold,
it doesn't look a particularly realistic looking.
No, without a date window as well. So we'll see what happens. What have you been liking lately, Felix?
This is a bit of an odd one. It came up in my YouTube recommended section. A little clip from Christie's, the auction house, on an auctioning of the estate of the late American comedian and TV host and all round savage Joan Rivers. Who passed away in 2016. So they auctioned off a bunch of her stuff. And I think she had like quite a lovely lifestyle. Looking at her apartment, seems to be sort of very fancy New York. So she's from like a Russian family, and like there's a lot of, like ornate French furniture, and like she collected Fabergé, like fairly serious Fabergé collection, a lot of Harry Winston. She described her apartment as where Marie Antoinette would live if she had taste, which I think is a bold claim. But there were some lovely items and outrageous items in her catalogue. There was a Tiffany dog bowl. There was a silk dog house, like a little sort of dog bed. A lot of jewellery, a few watches, nothing particularly eye-catching on the watch front from our point of view. There was a lovely Panthère de Cartier. And, lots of, Chanel and clothing and all sorts of fascinating things. But I just really like these. They're like little capsules into what someone's life was like. Like, because especially if it's a full estate, you can sort of see like furniture and clothing and jewelry and objects to the art. It's just a really interesting, glimpse into someone famous's history. And especially if it's someone like Joan Rivers that has such a big sort of personality and can be kind of hard to pin down what they must have been like. I just found it cool.
Lots of flowers, lots of enamel. I'm looking at the listing now. Strong nature themes.
Yeah, a lot of Art Nouveau jewellery. There were two auctions. There was a physical one and an online one, and they seem to have sort of divided it up a bit. But yeah, fascinating. Like really good taste stuff as well. Like a particular style, but very high quality pieces. So yeah, Joan Rivers, what a boss.
A lot of furniture. Wowee. Oh yeah, there's a desk clock from the early 20th century, late 19th century. Austrian silver. Cool. Gilt dial.
We'll link it up. You don't have to go through the entire catalogue of
I'm distracted.
Of the 4-year-old auction.
5-year-old auction of Joan Rivers.
Breaking news here. It's just interesting. It's that one. It's just fascinating seeing what the lives of famous people, I guess.
Christy's going to get all this traffic to the 5-year-old.
We've got to break it.
And it was like, what happened?
What have you been? Have you been following any past auctions of deceased celebrities?
It's diamond related. I've been watching. Finally found some time to watch a bit of Netflix, so I put Lupin Part 1 on Netflix, starring Omar Sy. You know about Lupin?
Yeah, I haven't watched the Netflix one, but I'm across sort of the pop culture Lupin. I don't know if this is the same take on it.
Same vibe. It's a
he's a jewel thief. Is he a jewel thief?
Thief. Yeah, it was like a novel, a French novel about a jewel thief who was always, 5 steps ahead of the police and everyone else. Very clever, very sophisticated, over the top plans.
My first introduction to Lupin was Hayao Miyazaki's film The Castle of Cagliostro, which was Japanese animated. Very 70s vibes, so like big sideburns and like funky soundtrack. I suspect this is a bit different.
Japanese anime guy. Yeah, this is, so obviously, as I said, it's set in France. It's a French production, I should say. So it is subtitled or dubbed.
Ooh la
You can
la.
watch it in dubbed. The dubbing is not bad. It sort of adds to it, sort of like think Money Heist, in terms of just the experience. But yeah, really entertaining. I think it's like 6 episodes for part 1, and it's all a little bit ridiculous. But again, it's sort of the modern day thief who's been inspired by his favorite French novel or character, and
Cool.
he goes and sort of emulates him with his big sophisticated plot. And it's really good. It's been massive on Netflix, obviously. So a lot of people have probably.
I think it's like
watched
their
or
number
have seen
one
it
at the
come up.
moment.
It's worth doing. That's all I'll say. Is like it's genuinely worth doing. So
Okay.
if you've been umming and ahhing, do it.
I will take you up on that recommendation. But do you know what else we need to do right now, Andy Grant?
What do we need to do?
We have to have a little break.
Let's do it.
This week's episode is brought to you by Tag Heuer, who have launched a new partnership with none other than Porsche. So today we're going to have a little bit of a chat around 2 versions of the watch that they've released to kick off the collaboration. The Tag Heuer Carrera Porsche chronograph, special edition. Andy, you've had the pleasure of wearing one on the wrist for a little bit, so I'm going to ask you in a second what that's been like. But how about I kick off and run through the key stats?
That sounds good to me.
As we might have hinted in the watch name, we're looking at a Carrera chronograph here. It's a 44mm case in steel, which has been given a bit of brushed and polished finishes as per Tag Heuer's want. Water resistant to 100 meters. Inside is the top of the line Heuer 2 movement, which gives you 80 hours of power reserve and a special rotor on the back, which is nice. But I think the main sort of wow factor, to borrow a phrase, is on the dial side, which is quite an unusual asphalt texture. There's black counters and there are red highlights. And if you're into Porsche, you should know that the red, the black and the grey are kind of house colours for the Stuttgart brand.
First time they've done the asphalt dial as well.
Yeah, that's. I want to hear what you've got to say about that. I'm really keen to see that IRL. Black ceramic bezel, tacky counter, nice little red Porsche brand up the top. And I should also note their Porsche typefaces that they've used throughout, which is a nice tie-in as well. Other details to note: there's a date at 6, which is well done, and there's 2 models that you can get. So there's the steel H-link bracelet, which is, pretty great. My pick, though, I think is the hand-stitched black calf one, which has got 4 lines of hand-stitching, like strength in grey, which is very inspired by the latest Carrera interiors. Also worth noting, Andy, not limited editions here. They're special editions, and they come in some pretty nice co-branded special packaging. Price-wise, you're looking at $8,450 on leather and $8,750 for steel. What's it like, Andy?
Yeah, fantastic. So as you ran through the specs, all 100% right. There's a lot of detail to this watch. The first one to get out the way, though, is the size. So it is 44mm, which for me is a larger size watch. So that had me leaning more to the leather strap, which I'm wearing right now. It is a nicely finished case. There's a lot of sort of polishing to it on the side of the lugs, the lines that we sort of have grown to expect from the Tag Heuer Carrera, which is an iconic model itself. The leather strap and the bracelet both have the folding clasp with the double safety pushes, which is a nice touch. Makes it really easy to put the strap on and off, obviously. But as you said, the dial really is the standout hit here. The asphalt finishing is really interesting to look like. It sort of glitters and sparkles a little bit in the sun. I took it outside for a little while, and the way that it sort of just reflects, obviously off that uneven surface, it is sort of, reminiscent of a racetrack. So that's really cool. It is a busier dial as well, but it's legible still. It's really interesting how they've done that. And I think part of it comes back to the use of the Porsche text, which, you know, if you're a Porsche guy or girl, this is a really cool touch to see. It's tastefully done, and it sort of blends in a little bit where it's sort of, you have to kind of look closely to see that it does say Porsche, so it's not obnoxious in any way, and I really like that. I think that's a really nice touch. The big thing here, though, is the case back, and obviously the movement is visible through the sapphire crystal, I should say. Now, the rotor is the standout piece. It's been shaped like a steering wheel and double signed, which, you know, in the watch world is sort of a big deal. So it's got Tag Heuer's logo and obviously Porsche on there too. As you said, Felix, the caliber Heuer 02, which is a really outstanding movement. 80 hours of power reserve is also awesome. I just think it's a really nice kind of tasteful collaboration between the two brands.
Yeah, I think that's my sort of key takeaway. Like you when you were sort of running through that and talking about, you know, you don't notice the Porsche branding. I think it's how far we've come in like a co-branded watch. Like if this was, you know, 10 or 15 years ago or whatever, they just would have slapped a logo on the dial and called it a day. I've got a few questions for you. Mm-hmm. What do you think about the numerals, which aren't really our numerals because it's a minute track for those applied markers?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you really notice until you get told or you go looking for it. Like it's so natural in terms of telling the time anyway that it's not something you notice. You know, it's a chronograph, so having that minute track there is almost more efficient. So not an issue for me.
It's a nice sort of like speedo touch as well, I think, it's a
speedo touch. It just looks like a tachometer. But yeah, so as you said, like it is a really cool partnership to see. Porsche is just about the mecca. Being a car lover myself, it's you know the Grail brand. So to have Tag Heuer working with Porsche is very cool. Mm-hmm. You know, these are the models to launch they're in celebration of the partnership. So we can imagine that, you know, maybe there's more to come. Maybe you know, over the coming year or, you know, next few years there's going to be more. It's a partnership that makes a lot of sense though, right? Like the Carrera for Tag Heuer is obviously, you know, a very important model, but also for Porsche, like there's the, you know, famously the Carrera is important to Porsche as well. And, you know, they're both great brands with, you know, great heritage, and to kind of see them moving forward together is really cool. And, you know, a recent example is Tag Heuer, I think last year or the year before, you know, announced that partnership with Formula E, obviously sponsoring a Porsche race team as well. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think that I find it really interesting, you know, looking into it a little bit, sort of the commonalities between the two brands in some ways. Like for many sort of watch lovers, Jack Heuer is a legendary figure, like, you know, larger than life and sort of visionary in many sort of ways and, you know, shaping the business. The same, I think, about Ferry Porsche. There's that sort of central figure that looms large in their backstories. I also find it interesting that these brands they're a good fit on sort of a product point of view, because there's that, you know, visiting their Tag Heuer manufacturer at Chavannes and visiting, you know, Porsche's Zuffenhausen facilities near Stuttgart. There's going to be big robotic machines, but there's also going to be guys embossing leather and doing that traditional artisanal stuff that I think it's a really nice celebration of the old and new. But I can't wait to see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm excited, and sort of definitely the wording of the releases indicate that there's more to come. So to recap on pricing, the Tag Heuer Carrera Porsche chronograph on leather is $8,450, and on steel it is 8,750 Aussie dollars. If you want to discover more about the partnership between Tag Heuer and Porsche, well, head to the website. That's tagheuer.com/Porsche, or you can head into your local Tag Heuer boutique as well. And Felix, I think it's time to get back to the episode.
Let's do it. And Andy, I've got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know Ted Gushue, our upcoming guest.
Mm-hmm.
Do you reckon that's his real name? You know, I mean,
it is.
We're talking about Lupin. We're talking about jewel heists. Do you think Ted could be a famous cat burglar hiding out in the Swiss Alps?
He's pretty charming.
Driving fast cars.
Always on the go.
I mean,
who is Ted Gushue?
Have we ever seen Ocean's 11 and Ted Gushue in the same room?
I've not. I've actually never seen Ted
with the cast of Ocean's 11.
Although not to say that they probably are mates, because he is a very well-connected young fella.
Well, we should probably get him on the line and neglect to ask any of these questions.
I'll hit speed dial. Today's guest needs little introduction amongst car enthusiasts. He's famously known for his iconic photography style, envied for his jet-setting lifestyle, revered for his humorous approach to social media. Today we are joined by automotive enthusiast, editor-in-chief of Porsche's Type 7, and the global ambassador for St Moritz. Yes. We have Ted Gushue on the line.
Boys, how we doing?
We are very well. Ted, how are you?
I can't complain. I'm watching the sunrise over the mountains here up in St Moritz, and just getting ready to have a nice week. I think looks like we're gonna have 3 days of sun followed by a ton of snow starting Wednesday. So maybe I'll get a bit more skiing in. Then we'll see.
That sounds fantastic, Ted. Now, we know who you are. We've caught up a few times. I believe you've met Felix as well. But I imagine there'll be some listeners that don't know who you are and what exactly you do. But you've very famously late last year once said shaving truffle is like flying private. If you're the one filming, you ain't the one paying. Ted, what do you actually do? Who are you and what do you do?
I love that non sequitur of this random kind of bitchy tweet I made because I was during truffle season in Europe happens around November, October, November, December, and even during the middle of a global pandemic, people were still finding ways to record videos of them shaving truffles and posting them everywhere on Instagram. And because I work all day using those platforms, you just start to get kind of sick of it. And I was just like, none of these people are paying for it because it's one of those things where you're not really the person who's paying generally is more discreet. Yep. A bit like the person who's paying to fly a private jet isn't necessarily the one who's blasting it, but it's always that friend who's like, "Look at me, I'm on a private jet." It's like you're not the one paying. So I don't know. I just it's my personal feeling that social media can be used for so much good and so much so much fun and like we see in the watch community and the car community. It really just unifies us and brings us all together. But then you can also just serve to do nothing other than make others feel jealous or feel weird or feel like they're not worthy. And I think that's like probably the darkest side of social media. One of many dark sides. But for me, I just kind of said, okay, enough's enough. I got to at least make an attempt to make fun of these people. And it was done in a lighthearted. It was done in a lighthearted way, I think.
Yeah.
But what was so funny is that there were, I posted it on my social media account, and I said, tag somebody who needs to hear this. And there was like 600 comments, but nobody tagging anybody. But then it was forwarded something like 2,000 or 3,000 times. And it was like, yeah, clearly we're all sick of this. We're all sick of this behavior of people trying to flex things they don't have, guys who don't own a watch, posting it, trying to pretend like it's theirs. I think that it's just endemic of the platform, and unfortunately, you guys see it all the time. But like somebody who posts some bonkers Rolex that you didn't even tag the guy who owns it because you're having coffee with him and you're trying to act like it's yours. And it's just a really negative dynamic that I think has kind of become a bit pervasive. And I love social media. I love what it does for me, and I love what it does for my friends and my business. But I don't know. I mean, to get back to your question, what the hell is it that I do? I try to define that every day. It's not clear because I keep my life unstructured in a way that allows me to do things that I want to do. And I've worked my whole life to get to that point, so that if I want to go do a photo shoot in Japan, I can. If I want to go start a new magazine, I can. If I want to go do a book, I can. So I'm in this really nice zone right now where I'm able to do whatever it is I want to do. And luckily, what I want to do happens to also be what my clients want to do. And we get to do really great stuff together. So one of those great projects is Type 7, which you mentioned.
Ted, you just mentioned Type 7. It's one of your projects, one of your big passions, and it's probably what a lot of people really know you for, if not for your previous work. What is it, and how would you describe Type 7?
Type 7 came about out of a conversation I had with Porsche in 2017. I had just left my job at Petrolicious, and I was consulting independently. And I was reached out to through an agency in Hamburg.
Mm-hmm.
These guys came to me and they said, "Hey, Porsche wants to do something a bit new, a bit special, and they want to create a magazine, like an online magazine." And the initial conversation was to create a website that would be designed to talk to people that are not car people, or people that are
Mm.
not necessarily not car people, but people that are a little bit more focused on their own passions that aren't necessarily cars, and focused on finding out how how people that are under the age of 35 really think about cars, really think about design, think about architecture, think about art, because Porsche to me has always been so much more than just a car company. It's really almost more of like a cultural thing at this point, and the way the community is structured proves to me that there is so much more to talk about with Porsche than just cars themselves. And to put Porsche in the context of art and architecture and history, I think made a lot of sense at the time, and still does. And so we decided to scrap the idea of building a website, because if we're talking to people under the age of 35, the chances of them using websites, that aren't apps, is quite low. So I said, let's start an Instagram account that can then build itself into a full 360 dimensional platform, and using books, using all sorts of things. So we really, I've over the past 2 years, I've built a small team that's filled with guys and gals that are really fantastic. We have an Aussie who works with us, which you'll be proud to know, Noelle Faulkner, really nice gal. Um,
Amazing.
and then we've got Nat Twist, who's our managing editor, Thomas Walk, who's our kind of head of production and book designer, and then we work with about 70, 80 photographers around the world who go and document really amazing things for us. So whether that is a story about a young person and their Porsche, or whether it's about an original piece of architecture or an original piece of art, whatever it might be, we're trying to make sure that we're telling the stories of the things that exist in the universe of Porsche. And then very transparently, what our goal is that we get to then meet people who never even thought about Porsche, never even thought about getting a license, a driver's license, and then we get to invite them into our universe. So it's really kind of a gift to the world in that way, and that we're trying to make sure that we're always inviting new people in to learn about Porsche, not necessarily to buy a Porsche, but just to understand how Porsche fits into the global conversation around beautiful things. So for me, it's such a pleasure, and to get to be able to commission such great work from so many people is equally a pleasure. And I have to say, it's been the most fun ride I could have ever imagined. It's taken me around the world. Um, I get to work with really, really bright people at Porsche, and I get to go tell amazing stories everywhere I go.
Ted, it's quite amazing, I think, that you've gone from and it's sort of a very 2020 or 2019, whatever it is, thing, that you've gone from an Instagram account into a beautiful sort of coffee table book or several coffee table books. How is it different from creating content for Instagram to creating something for a lovely print publication?
Well, the first rule of thumb I have with all my clients is that we are kind of platform agnostic. So we commission photo shoots at the highest possible quality, with the knowledge that we might use them for all sorts of things. So whether
Mm.
that is for Instagram, whether that is for a book, whether that's for a website, whatever it is, because platforms change. If maybe Instagram is not here in 2 years, but I still would commission the content in the same way. So whether it's me photographing it, whether it's one of our colleagues photographing it, whatever it might be, we're just trying to create something amazing. When we actually publish it on Instagram, it's an edited down version of this. So we're only really able to give you 10 images in a carousel. Maybe we do it over 2 or 3 posts, but it's really something that is a full feature that you would expect to see in a magazine, but edited down natively to that platform. And like I said, if
Mhm.
Instagram goes away tomorrow and something new comes out, we're ready for that too. Because as long as there's people there to enjoy it, we believe that we can shoehorn whatever it might be into the format that works the best. So that's really it's plain and simple. We're just trying to do awesome things, and if that means that we have to publish it on Instagram today, great, we publish it there. But if next week we publish it on, who knows, whatever you want to call it, then we're ready there too. So content is content is content. I don't care where you're reading it, where you're consuming it. You can read an article on Instagram if you're passionate about whatever the thing is, or you can read it in a book, or you can read it everywhere. You know, we as media guys, we are always passionate about the legacy stuff because it's really beautiful, and we're
Mm.
finding now that while we initially assumed that most people in this age group that we were trying to target through Type 7 wouldn't have the attention span to like sit down with a magazine, they actually love to sit down with a book. It was almost a bit of a shock. Like, I knew I love books, and I love having coffee table books around, but it's really something that, I don't know. It took us a little bit off guard because we've now sold out twice from both of our volumes, and we're in reprints of both, which are coming soon. And people just really love the object, and they love sitting down with it and holding it in their hands and touching the paper. And we've done some really cool tricks with the paper, and it's really quite edifying because it shows that not only, yes, while we're on our phones, maybe our attention span is quite low, but we haven't totally damaged our attention span. It's more that we've just sort of retargeted it and refocused it on the things that are right in front of us. So we were looking forward to doing more books. We've just been commissioned for volume 3, and then hopefully volume 4 and 5 after that will are starting to look pretty good. And yeah, it's a blast. To be able to create something like that is a treat, I have to say.
That's fascinating. I think one of the first one thing you said to me when we first met all those years ago was good content is always going to be good content no matter where it is, and it's cool to hear that that still sort of uh, underpins what you do. Uh, you've touched on the success of these Type 7 coffee table books. Uh, it's been really interesting to see the reception to those. You've sold out twice on them, but it became this phenomenon of, what A Man and His Watch was 3 years ago, where everyone who was into cars or everyone who's into watches ended up with this book. Given your background sort of has been digital, Petrolicious is an online publication, I should say. Obviously, the success you've had there on social media with other online publications, but personally, how did it feel for you to be so pivotal in such a successful print object?
Like I said, it's super edifying just to be able to say, "Hey, look, this is something we've done. Let's see if you guys respond to it." And then to have the response be overwhelming is really, it's positive. The only negative thing I have to say about creating a book is shipping the fucker to people. Like, getting a book internationally into people's hands without it getting damaged along the way. It creates so many little headaches. That's probably the only downside, I would say. Designing the book is a pleasure. I've got a really talented guy in Thomas Walk. Uh, you know, Producing the book is a pleasure. Printing a book is fun, but logistics of shipping a book around the world or shipping 5,000 books around the world, it makes your head spin. So I think that would probably be my only criticism to the process.
Is Thomas Walker, is he Aussie, or is he was based in Sydney for a little while, or
No,
is he LA now?
he's Aussie. He's in Sydney.
He's Aussie. Yeah,
He's
yeah. I
he's a
didn't
new
think
father,
he
and
sounded familiar.
he's a really great guy. He's I think he's 27, 28. He's in his late 20s, and just super hungry and super talented, and a pleasure to work with. Really positive energy, and I'm very lucky. I've got a team of people around me that are more talented than I am, and I get to play symphony leader. But these guys are all really playing at the highest level, and it's a treat to work with them.
Amazing. All right. Well, before we move on from Type 7 for Volume 2, for those looking to grab a copy, what's the top line? Why should someone buy it? Uh,
Well,
Tell us
at
quickly.
the moment they can't, sadly. So if you can find one, enjoy it. But right now they're all sold out, from what I understand. So hopefully the last few hundred are being delivered in the next week or two. but we're going to be going to reprint soon, and then that'll be announced shortly after. But it's just it's a book that highlights what we think are some of the most important working kind of up and coming artists at the moment, some of the best architects, some of the best designers. We've got an interview with Mark Newson in there. We've
Wow.
got we've got just so much great stuff. Really, really fantastic imagery of younger people that get to own Porsches and showing and showcasing their passion, which we think is just the best. And then it's onwards from there. It's a beautiful compendium that takes a snapshot of what we think is relevant in that world right now. And we do it in a way that's very respectful to everybody and really just trying to celebrate beauty when it comes down to it.
Amazing, amazing. Well, as we said, there's a lot to talk about. Now, this sort of underpins a lot of the conversation that we're having around sort of social media and your journey. But one post that you put up a little while ago that really sort of stuck with Felix and I was to do with your photography journey, and it sort of mentions someone loaning you a camera, which was subsequently stolen, and it took you some time to get the funds to sort of repay them, and you kind of shared that moment with your audience. That was firstly very refreshing and honest, like we sort of discussed as an approach to social media. But what was that like to sort of reach that point in your career to sort of be able to do that? And how important is it to you personally to share that sort of realness with the audience?
I think it's crucial. I think if you're somebody who's, all day long we see these people on Instagram that lead these insane lives that, that just don't make any sense. You're like, how could this possibly work? And they don't. Generally speaking, I feel like people don't talk about their journey. And so if you're someone who's just tuning in and you think, wow, I can never catch up to this guy, or I can never learn about how to live like that, or I can never do what I want to do based on what this guy has shown me that I could do. I think it's really disingenuous because it makes it seem like you were always going to be at this level. Like for instance, like if you follow Kim Jones, the designer for Dior Men's, this guy was a bartender at a gay bar in London for a long time. Like he was
Yeah,
just these, and to see him now, like flying around the world doing fashion shows with all the greatest all of the greatest designers in the world. But however you want to describe what he does today, he's very successful at it. And to jump in just now and look at where he is without knowing his life story, it's a little overwhelming. And you go, I could never do this. But then when you see that he was just a guy with a vision, struggling just like everybody else, and then one little thing, somebody walks into the bar and says, hey, come hang out for an afternoon, and it turns into a conversation, which turns into a meeting, which turns into a job offer, and all of a sudden he's fast forward a bit, he's doing what he's doing now. I think it becomes much more sympathetic and much more honest and much more real because you're seeing the whole picture. And I think it also helps people feel like it's okay to be struggling, and it's okay to be hungry, and it's okay to not be where you want to be yet. But it also reminds them that as long as you keep plugging away at it, whatever it is, as long as it's not something super negative, I think it shows that it's possible to break through. And whatever version of breaking through looks like for you. For me, it was important to say along the way that there were many people who helped me, many people who gave me a meeting, many people who gave me a chance, and I'm grateful to all of them. And the thing that I think really liberated me the most was when my friend lent me his camera, and it just took me onto a whole different plane of existence that I never thought would, that is so satisfying to me emotionally, that is so satisfying to me professionally, and allows me to do what I want to do now, which is I love telling stories. So for me to be able to get on a plane and travel around the world and land and start documenting amazing cars with amazing people or amazing anything I want, this is what I find to be most edifying. Which is also why this current period has been the most difficult for me to get through because I'm not really able to do the things that I love doing. And what I love doing is going somewhere completely new, knowing nobody, and finding a ridiculously cool story to tell. That's what that's what gets me out of bed. So right now, that's probably my biggest struggle and my biggest problem is that I'm not able to go to Tokyo right now and shoot these 10 stories I want to shoot. And that kind of, it really digs away at me. I'm in, I'm in total luxury here. I've got a great apartment in a beautiful town on top of the world, and I'm very happy here. But it's almost feels a bit like early retirement. Um, I'm super desperate to get back on the road, and I think I'm not alone in this feeling of being static. I'm not used to it, so that's my
Yeah.
rambling explanation.
No, no, that makes perfect sense. And I just want to, you might well have answered it there, but I do sort of want to rewind back to Kim Jones for a second, where you sort of said if someone dropped in without seeing his vision, what's if someone was in sort of looking in at your life halfway through it, what's your vision like? What do you want to achieve, and have you done it?
I don't know what I want to achieve, to be totally honest. Every 2 3 years, I find that I'm achieving more than I could have ever imagined. So for me to sit there and be like, "Hey, I want to be XYZ," I just don't know that I have that clarity of vision of where I need to be. I think it's much more. I look at every opportunity and I go, that feels right." So like when I met with Porsche for the first time, I go, this feels really right. And then it's
Mm,
only grown into something that's super positive and keeps increasing. For me, life is a series of doors and rooms. The rooms are filled with doors, and then you pick one and you go through to the next room and you see what the next doors look like. I don't believe in some sort of fatalistic vision of what my life should be. I'm constantly flexible, constantly reappraising, constantly changing. I have a therapist I talk with that really kind of helps me figure out the issues I have going along the way and try to find the most balanced way and a most balanced approach to it. Because it can be a little heady sometimes, to go from being you know, someone just kind of scrapping along to being flown business class around the world to go meet with watch brands like I did when I had a magazine in New York City. Like I think Felix, one of the first times I met you was at SIHH
mhm.
in um,
Geneva.
in Geneva, and you know if you arrive for your first one of those, having not been in that world at all, and they've flown you there first class, business class, whatever, put you up in a 5-star hotel, surrounded you by with the world's best champagne and foie gras, and then started just handing you $200,000 watches to play with, it's a little much to go from 0 to 60 like that really quick. So
Yeah,
so I
I
don't know.
call that my, sorry, I call that my fake luxury life. I think that's how I keep saying.
Yeah, I grew to resent that world.
Yeah.
I love watches and I love collecting watches and I love the whole industry. But then, for a while, it became difficult to say no to those events because you thought you had to be there. And obviously now that whole world has changed. But the same goes for the car world as well. Brands flying you around like this, and it really goes to your head. And a lot of journalists, you meet people along the way that only seem to really exist at these events because that's the
Yeah.
only way that they get to live, because their actual salary that they make doing whatever it is they do is so low that they actually can't afford to do any of these things. And then so they become addicted to this stuff like the foie gras and the champagne and the first class flights and all this without any context. And so, they live humble lives generally, and then they go to have this strange vacation where they pretend to be millionaires, and they go back. And it's a surreal world that creates that world, and it's all about coercion. It's all about getting people to write certain things about you and give you press to sell product. So when I lived in that world for a little while, I got sick of it, and I got sick of not being in control of my own flights, my own itineraries, my own hotels, my own you're always being looked after. You start to feel like this prisoner, like this golden cage sort of thing, and it's just I got sick of it. So I'm out of that world at the moment, and I don't think that world is coming back in the way it used to. But I'm much happier being somebody who's fully in control of his own destiny.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a really good answer, and I think there's a few things that lead into the next question I have. First of all, yeah, what you said about being ready for the opportunities when they come, and kind of using that sense check or that gut feeling, and also obviously the travel that usually happens with your job that can't right now, but in a more, I guess, in a more kind of zoomed out look at what you do and your passion, which is photography, but also predominantly cars and automotive. I'm really curious as to how you travel light whilst being into cars, because you were obviously American, then you went over to the UK, and now you're in St Moritz. How do you do that? How do you travel light whilst being into and working in with these heavy objects?
Well, I mean, I don't always have to carry them with me.
Sure.
I've got my car here with me that's traveled the world with me, but that's that's one car. I have a parking space for it here, and it stays here at the moment. And then wherever I want to go next with it, it goes there. But I'm a photographer. I have a backpack full of gear, and that's it. I don't I wear the same jeans every day like most guys. I wear the same you know one version of the same three shirts. I'm not a complicated person when it comes to all these objects. I do find now that I'm static for the past six
Mm,
months, that I'm accumulating things in a way that makes me suffocate. I've got so much lovely stuff that friends, brands have sent me. Hey, check this out, try this out. Like and the stuff is beautiful. Like I received the other day from my friends. There's a company called Alps and Meters. They do really great ski gear, and they sent me like four of my favorite sweater. And now I'm just like, okay, well, now I've got four sweaters, but I already had like 35 sweaters because they just keep, either they keep showing up or I bought them or whatever it might be. So I in general, I loathe ownership. I loathe owning tons of crap. I loved living on the road because I could only take my bag with me, and I generally prefer to be carry on only. So for me, this was the best because there's just you just don't feel the weight of any of this crap on you. And I've got now I'm looking at beautiful stuff on my coffee table. This great humidor I got from my friend's gallery at the Pullman Gallery, an original 1930s St. Moritz poster he provided to me, all framed, beautifully hung in my house. I really love my house, but I'm also in some ways suffocated by it because I
mm,
prefer to live out of a backpack, and I prefer to live, you know, I preferred to be hungry, if that makes sense.
mm.
And being well fed and being surrounded by beautiful shit, I think it gets kind of old.
Yeah. No, that's a great answer. I think I was more asking in that philosophical sense, sort of knowing how there are times when you need to be able to jump on the road and change country and be able to get up and go and be ready, because sometimes these opportunities come in fast and hot. And so I find that really interesting that that's been so pivotal to your success, and now you're at this point where you have sort of been forced to settle down. And I think that's a really interesting and honest answer, to be honest.
Can
Yeah,
I ask
just
a question?
yeah,
Oh,
sure.
no. We've talked about it a little bit, in sort of in passing, and it's obviously been your base of operations for the last 6 months. In the bio, at the start, we said that you were the. Hold on a second. You are the global ambassador for St Moritz. What does that mean?
Well, so a town like St. Moritz is a little bit difficult to get to. It's in the Alps. Not everyone can get over here. Not everyone's around, but there are people who could be interested to come here. And and my role with the town has always been to be on the road and to talk about, if people ask me in the same way you guys just asked me, you saw my bio, you go, what does that even mean?
Mm,
And it allows me to go speak with authority about the place that I love, and I really do love this place, and to explain as a testimonial what it's about. So, I've been coming here for 4 years now. I started coming for a car event in 2016 when I was working at Petrolicious, and we just the relationship grew totally naturally, and they really wanted somebody who lived in the car world, who worked in the car world, who could be asked questions about it, about the town, and to be able to to speak with an honest authority. I'm not sitting here like pretending like it's the perfect oasis on earth. But no, I have an honest understanding of what the town is, the history of the town, why it's special, why winter sport was created here, why winter tourism was created here in 1856. This is really a town with so much history and so much heritage and so much beauty. So for me to be able to answer questions about it anywhere in the world is a real privilege. So it's pretty straightforward in that way. I get to, if there's an event that they need someone from St. Moritz to be at and I'm nearby, I go represent the town there. but it's
Nice.
really a very casual relationship and very fun.
So I've got a hypothetical. Not so. I mean, this could be a real thing, Ted. Like, say I'm in a magical fantasy land, getting on a plane, and I'm going to a watch event in Switzerland. Sell me on St Moritz. How do I get there? What do I do? I can't ski. Should I go?
60% of every guest that comes here does not ski.
Okay.
So,
What do
so
we
I,
do
I
then?
there's so much to do here that isn't skiing that it's actually, it's a little overwhelming. So I'm looking out my window right now at the frozen Lake St Moritz Sea, and they're building an ice skating rink the size of 3 football fields that is
Oh,
just epically beautiful, and it's monodirectional, and it looks almost like a lazy river. And so that's something they're doing. Then there's curling. So this is, I think, really the birthplace of curling around the world
hmm.
was here. There's bobsleigh. You can do taxi rides on the only totally man-made Olympic bobsleigh track on Earth. There's the Cresta Run, which is the original skeleton, the original skeleton sort of. It inspired what today you would call skeleton at the Olympics, and it's a really fantastic and historical sport created by the English who were staying here in the late 1870s, 1880s. And besides that, there is paragliding. There's any sport that you could think of that you could do in the Swiss Alps. They can do here. You have Langlauf, which is cross country skiing. Um, let's see, we have squash, tennis, all the normal stuff. What else? There's just
How are the
almost
bars?
the bars.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, you've got you have 4 5-star hotels here that are considered to be some of the best hotels in the world. So you have the Badritz Palace Hotel, you have the Kulm Hotel, you have the Suvretta House Hotel. Just to give you an idea, these hotels, they are the hotels that inspired the Grand Budapest Hotel, the film done by Wes Anderson. So when you come here, you immediately get sort of transported into that universe of just impossible hospitality, like making wishes come true types of things, where it's really, in my opinion, the Swiss do some of the best hospitality on earth. But up here, it's really the creme de la creme. So the hotels that you can stay at here are you can also stay at a pensioner hotel, like a little sporting hotel for $100 a night and have breakfast in the morning and go ski all day. Or you can stay, have an experience like the Badridge Palace, which is truly to be transported into that other world that Wes Anderson was trying to capture. And
Mm.
it's great to have the mixture of all of that here.
That sounds amazing, and I think I need to put it on my itinerary for whenever I get to Switzerland again. My last question, and this is given that you've seen so much of the world, if you couldn't be the global ambassador for St Moritz, where would you be the global ambassador for?
I don't know that I would
Any?
ever have the balls to be the global ambassador of it, but for me, Japan is really the most incredible place I've ever been to in my life. Switzerland, like I said, has incredible hospitality and immaculate roads, and everything is done so beautiful here and just really spectacular. But like here's a perfect example of the difference between Japan and Switzerland. And I've said this before that Switzerland is the Japan of Europe and Japan is the Switzerland of Asia. But in Switzerland they have hospitality, which is somebody is serving you at the highest level in the most perfect way. In Japan they have what's called omotinashi. And omotinashi, maybe you guys know this term, but omotinashi translates to hospitality. But the way that they interpret hospitality is the art of putting your guest above yourself without being servile to them. So, and the way that the Japanese execute this is they anticipate every possible need you might have before you need it. So you're never asking for that thing, if that makes sense. It's already like
Mm.
you go, oh, I wish I had a toothbrush. And you're in your hotel room and you turn to your left and the toothbrush is right where it should be, like this. You know what I mean? So
Flawless.
it doesn't. Yeah, it's the same amount of work. They've just sat there and thought through everything you could possibly need, so that if you don't have to pick up a phone to call somebody to ask them to get it, because that in and of itself is forcing somebody to serve you. So it's a subtle difference that creates something that is, I can only describe it as magic, because you're there and everything has been thought of. everything. And it's just remarkable the way that the whole culture works that way. Obviously, I think they're able to achieve this because of being such an ancient culture that's homogenous, and they are largely ethnically Japanese. I think 98%. So you have such a strong community of people that are like-minded, that allow them to create these unwritten rules, so to speak. Nobody sits there and hands out an omotenashi guideline. It's just part of what it means to be, what it means to be Japanese. And to me, that's the coolest thing, to be able to experience that, coming from such a diverse country like America, that has such beauty and such creativity and all these great things, but then to go experience that, which is so different, so radically different. It's a remarkable thing, and I love Japan. I love my Japanese friends. I love the way that they appreciate car culture there. I love the way that they appreciate the differences in car culture. You have some guys who are obsessed with totally original 1950s Porsches that are not modified in any way. But then they go hang out with these guys that are driving 1990s Porsches that have crazy wings dangling off of them, like that have nothing to do with each other, basically. And they go, wow, that's not my taste, but I see your passion for it, and I celebrate your passion. You'll never see people like you might see in the Hodinky comments, or maybe even on your own website, who are like, fuck you for liking that watch. I can't believe you would like that. Like, I want to meet your mother and slap her in the face because she gave birth to you because you like that piece of shit watch. Like, that's the way people behave online now, unfortunately. But in Japan, I found it to be the exact opposite. It's all about respect, and respecting someone else's passion, and really respecting the diversity in those passions. And I think that's something I've really taken away, and it's really informed how I move through this earth. And it's such a special place. So I'm waiting on my visa to go back. Hopefully by February or March, they'll be allow me to go back in. But it's just the most magical place. I hope everyone gets to go sometime.
Tremendous. Well, I don't know a lot about the car community in Japan. They're famous for drifting, but I'm sold on I'm sold on Japan and St Moritz now. So, yeah, we'll join you with the opportunity to travel. What I want to get into is watches, and we've got a few questions here, being predominantly watch podcasts. But how when we first spoke all those years ago, you were based in the US still. You hadn't kind of begun this journey of constant travel and almost that nomadic lifestyle. So what I'm curious is, how has the way you kind of view and collect watches shifted over the past 12 months?
I mean, for me, I've never had anything special in my head other than, wow, that's fucking cool. I want that. It's really that
Hmm.
straightforward. And as I grow older, and as my financial situation evolves, I'm able to try new things that I didn't think I would be able to. And it's also something for me. Like, I'm picturing in the next 6 months, I do a big purge of my collection and really focus on a few pieces that are really special to me. Right now, I think I have probably 20, 30 watches that are not being enjoyed because they're in
Hmm.
my safe. And I've got a handful of watches that I kind of rotate through on a regular basis right now. But to say that it's evolved, I'm not sure that it's evolved. I think what's evolving is that I'm constantly talking to myself about how I want less things, and as I seem to keep accumulating more and more things, um, I get a little uncomfortable. So I'd rather own two or three really great watches and be very happy than owning 20 or 30 that I'm not wearing it in a way that's respectful to them. And this is a philosophy my friend Matt Jacobson really really kind of pushed onto me, that I haven't fully even employed yet. But he's always one in, one out. If he buys something,
Hmm.
he's got to sell something. So he has a fixed number of things he's allowed to own, whether it's T-shirts, Rolexes, cars, boats, whatever it might be. He's a very successful guy, and he's able to try a lot of things, but he's not a hoarder. And I really don't want to be a hoarder, because I like moving through this life very gracefully and with a lot of lightness. So to be burdened by a huge watch collection right now for me is not something that is what I want to be doing. Maybe when I'm retired or older, or more stationary and comfortable about it, I wouldn't mind owning a larger number of them again. But right now, like if I try to go through the Swiss border carrying 10 watches, it's a disaster.
Mm.
So I'd rather own one or two things that I'm really happy with and I can move around with than to own 30 things that I'm not even getting to enjoy and keeping someone else from enjoying.
That's a great answer, and we'll have to link up Matt Jacobson's Instagram because he's a very cool guy to kind of follow and definitely learn from. So, you mentioned those sort of the consolidation, and you're thinking about it. What do those watches look like to you? What are those special pieces that you kind of want to end up with?
So I've got a 5402 SA Audemars Piguet that was from a Series A watch, really beautiful two tone.
Hmm.
That was a gift from a friend after working on a project with him for a while. Um, I've got the same watch you have on the Batman, which is just I think a killer watch.
Hmm.
Modern Rolex for me is it's probably the best deal in watchmaking because you get paid to wear it.
Yeah,
Essentially, you know,
yeah.
you unless you really destroy the watch, you're not going to lose money on it if you have to move away from it. So, whereas maybe some brands you buy them and they're immediately worth half, Rolex is typically the opposite. So for me to buy a Rolex, it's not like buying a watch, if that makes sense. It's buying it's somewhat of an investment, and then like I said, like so I've just purchased the GMT Master 2 in Ever Rose, and
Wow.
this is a watch if I wear it for a year, I'll enjoy every second of it, and then I can, if I want to move on from it, I move on, and I've got my money back plus interest, and it was a pleasure to own. So if you can find a way to enjoy these watches, uh, financially speaking, you're not punishing yourself. You're just temporarily parking the asset there. So for me, modern Rolex is a really fantastic deal. Obviously, vintage Rolex is a bit more speculative, and it can go either way. And you can run into issues where with authenticity. But with a modern Rolex, you've got a warranty. You've got it's a pretty bulletproof product, and you can really enjoy them. You can go diving with them, you can go swimming with them because the engineering quality is just so bonkers. So for me at the moment, modern Rolex is a good buy. Um, like I said, because you get your money back if you have to, which is to me always kind of crucial. But what else do I have in that? And if I could keep only these things in the collection, I also have a 1990s two-tone Submariner, which I think was the most beautiful blue they ever made, and they're trying to bring that blue back, but I still think the original blue from there was really fantastic. Um, what else am I? I've got the new Bamford Aqua Racer, which is super cool. You guys have seen this as well, I think.
Hmm.
Really fun watch, great kind of knock around sporting watch. I love my Apple Watch. I wear that every time I go do anything sporting related. Like I wear it skiing. I turn on the ski tracker. I get to have all this cool data because of it. It's a really great piece of tech. What else?
One of the watches that you've got some fairly epic pieces in your safe, but one of the ones I always you know hit a like on nanoseconds after I see it, because it's such a unique and really just fresh looking watch, is your Unimatic and NASA collab.
Yeah,
Tell us
this thing is
about
great.
that. That was one, it like disappeared in seconds. How did you get it? Do you wear it often? Do you lose it in the snow?
I don't wear it as often as I probably should, but it's a really fun watch to wear up here because it looks sort of like, I don't know, some sort of emergency watch that was used by Air Force in the 1950s and 60s, and I love the guys that worked there. Giovanni Moto is a really close friend, and he and I are actually working on a little project together, which would be quite fun. And he over the years, if he and I are always talking about the projects he has upcoming, and so I'll kind of say, hey, make sure I get one of those, and I'll make sure I can buy it from him. And it's one of the benefits of working on projects with people that are doing cool stuff is you get to see what's in the pipeline. So I'll definitely admit that I get preferential treatment because I'm involved in the process sometimes. But it's really a cool watch, and I think one of the better buys I've ever done. I think it was $500 or $600 or something like this. It's really and it's just fun. It reminds you that it should be fun. You can wear it anywhere, and people go, "What the hell is that?" like the Everose GMT I just purchased. Like, it's a watch I would probably think about where I would wear it before I would wear it.
Yeah, sure.
It can send a message that is not necessarily like for me. I love it because I'm an enthusiastic watch collector, but some people might see it in a light that is. And compared to a yellow gold, I think it's much more discreet, but it's very much a watch that's like trying to make a statement that I'm not necessarily trying to make. I'm just enthusiastic about the technology in the Ever Rose. I'm enthusiastic about the design. I love the new GMT Master 2. I think they're great watches. But if you wear it into McDonald's or something, and people look at you like you're kind of an asshole. So there's definitely aspects of owning very rare metal watches that can be negative at times, and that's just not my vibe. I don't like to. I don't wear things to make other people feel bad. I wear them to make me feel good. So if it means I don't wear it to a few different things, that's fine. But it's a watch I'm looking at right now. It's beautiful, and it's just really a special thing to own.
100%. I can definitely empathize with you on that. And also, I just want to say on the record that if you decide to like get rid of some of your watches and that Unimatic is on the chopping block, let me know. I'll take it off you. Don't worry about it. I just
Well,
also want to ask another. Sorry.
sorry. There are watches that financially would never make sense to get rid of like that. I'm into it for $500. Who knows what it's worth? I don't know, but like at $500, I can afford to sock it away if
Yeah.
I need.
Yeah.
But it's so much fun, I have to say.
And that you mentioned also the Bamford Aqua Racer. Does that fall into the fun category for you as well?
Well, George and I do a watch together every year, so he and I have a reputation of working together for the last 4 or 5 years, and our relationship is based totally out of fun. Yes, we've sold some watches together, but it's always ever just let's maximize the amount of fun we can have, and he's really good at it, and he's just as you guys have gotten to know him, I'm sure you can sympathize. He's one of these people that just he's here to live his life really well and do it in great style and with great fun and to be a great friend, and he's just he's a really good guy, and I everything he does, whether it's not for you or whether it's for me or whether it's for someone else, it's up for debate, but I think it's just the most fun you can have in watchmaking because it becomes yours. It's really it's a silly fun thing.
Yeah, we love George, and obviously we've had him on mid last year. Ted, is there any insight into what you guys might get up to this year for
Yeah,
the next
our
piece?
next watch will be another Zenith El Primero, but it'll be is it 36? Is that right? Or 30, 38? I can't remember. The classic version of the El Primero. We're doing something quite cool, so that'll be our next watch.
Amazing. That sounds pretty cool. Another brand that we've seen you enjoy, and it happens to be a micro brand, and I'm guessing that there's a relationship or friendship there as well with the founder Etienne. But Baltic, and you recently put up a really lovely shot of the GMT. Felix and I haven't had a chance to get our hands on it yet, but what do you love about Baltic?
I met Etienne before he even started it. We were friends through mutual friends in Paris, and we went out to dinner, and he showed me some prototypes, and I was like, this is cool." And look, I love the whole spectrum of watchmaking. I love the $500 Unimatics. I love the $1,000 Baltics. I love the Autodromos. I love small manufacturers that are doing something fun that it can be enjoyed by almost anybody. And I think that to me is what it's all about. Obviously, of course, there's always going to be the big ticket Rolexes and all these things out there that are fun and exciting, but they're not, they can be a bit alienating. You can be kind of alone in your little ivory tower with a big watch like that. So for me to be able to talk about those more accessible watches, that's much more the direction I want to go in terms of what I communicate on my social media profiles. Like, I want to invite more people to the passion, not make people feel like they can't hang out. I never liked that feeling of somebody trying to make someone else feel like they're not welcome, and unfortunately, big watches do make people feel a bit like they may not be worthy or they can't afford it or whatever. It just creates a slightly negative relationship and maybe a slightly nah 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 nah, like this. And that's like the antithesis of who I am and who I like to be. So for me to see friends like those guys creating watches that the average person can go and buy with with relative impunity. You know, obviously, $1,000 is still a lot of money, but I said this is cool. You know, these guys are taking the right cues from watchmaking and making sure that that people get to know about it in a way that's friendly and fun and accessible, and you know, lo and behold, they sell out. So it's clear they're doing something right, and people enjoy it. And I think that, you know, maybe there were production issues early on as he got the brand going, but I think he's really cooking right now. And the watches are getting better and better every season, and he really pushes to come out with something new and exciting that gets everybody kind of going, "Wow, how cool is that?" You know, the watch world takes notice.
100%. It's they're really one of the hot brands at the moment, and you know, for good reason. I just want to sort of move away from watches a little bit, but still, you know, keeping it in the mix. Your social media in general is really quite diverse. Like a lot of accounts seem to really, you know, nail in on one thing. It's watches, it's cars, it's this or that. You've got it all. You've got cigars, you've got, you know, beautiful old graphic design, you've got art. At what point did you feel completely comfortable posting just what you wanted on your own social media?
I think I've always felt that way. You know, I don't. I do it for me. You know, I don't sit there and think, how can I maximize this post for likes and engagement? I go, okay, I want to talk about this. Let's talk about it. And those who want to talk about it, they come in and they talk about it. And it's a very honest conversation. You know, it's not. I don't sit there and be like, wow, you know, log cabins are doing super well content wise. I got to shift my strategy to log cabins only. Like, no, I don't care. Like, I talk about what I want to talk about, and you know, I would probably have higher engagement if I sat there and tried to reverse engineer this stuff, like I've done for clients before. But for me, it's just about having a conversation with people that are passionate, and if I'm honest about my passion, they come through. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think over the last few years, especially, you've really opened up even more, sharing more of your personality. You know that a lot of people are afraid to share things like mental health, things like political views. And what I really like about it is that, you know, there's been a really strong reaction, and you know, overwhelmingly, I think it's quite positive in the way you handle people that aren't, or a bit ignorant, or kind of say, you know, dumb comments. Were you ever worried about sort of the further opening up yourself, and how that might, you know, impact working with brands, and all of these great things that you have going on, or was it the same mindset that you just mentioned?
I'm kind of the mind that if a brand's going to not work with me because of a viewpoint, that'll come out one way or another either way. So I'd rather be honest about where I stand and who I am, and what I love and what I don't love, than be have a relationship with a brand or with a client that is disingenuous because they think I'm one way and I'm actually a different way. You know, like let's say I was working with a brand who I didn't know was homophobic or something, and I did a post about my gay friends or something like this, like, and then they said, "Hey, we can't work with you anymore." I'd be like, "Oh, great, thank you for removing the, you know, thank you for ending the conversation for me," as opposed to the other way around. So if a brand wants to work with me, they want to work with me. If they don't, they don't. I don't solicit. I'm not like out
Mm.
there hunting for clients, hunting for new work. I'm doing what I want to do, and if a brand wants to come in and do what I want to do, great. If they don't, no worries. I've got plenty of other stuff to do. I'm very lucky that my largest client, Porsche, is fully invested in our project, but the project is much bigger than me. You know, the Type
Mm.
7 project isn't just my little baby. It belongs to my whole team. It belongs to a whole global community of creatives, and these people all have radically different personal views and radically different ethnic backgrounds and radically different everything. And we celebrate. I personally, I celebrate that diversity because we're allowed to. And Porsche wants it to be diverse, and they want it to be special, and they want it to include everybody. Now that said, you know, Type 7, we don't have a political agenda. There is no space for us to make political statements. We had a very difficult time working around what the appropriate thing was to say during the Black Lives Matter movement that was happening in America. And I think we
Mm.
ultimately made the right decision to be a part of the conversation. But at the end of the day, our goal there is to celebrate beauty and to celebrate design and to celebrate craftsmanship and to celebrate all the things that make Type 7 special. So I can talk about these things very openly on my personal page, and I don't believe it causes any issue for my clients because I'm very honest. But the brand is not there to make radical statements or any sort of political statements. It's there to do what it does. So yeah, I'm happy to make personal statements on my own page, but they're mine, and they don't necessarily reflect the views of my entire community that we represent with Type 7. So it's a balance, but for me, it's about just being honest and being kind and being receptive to learning new things. And I'm constantly talking about viewpoints of mine that have evolved or changed, and reassessing biases, reassessing all these things. And I think I think we have to be this way. Otherwise, we're all just sort of you know it's all just our representatives meeting each other. It's not like we're not having a real conversation. It's like a bunch of PR managers talking to each other about how great we all are. It's like, no, some weeks I'm having a shit week. Some weeks I'm having a really great week. And some weeks I miss my parents, and some weeks I miss my home. There's all
Mm.
sorts of things that come through. And I think if we're all honest about it, it makes it a little bit less painful and a little bit less lonely for those that are suffering or those that are having a great time. Also, what better when you're having a really great moment to see that other people are having a great moment too, and just kind of vibrating with them. So yeah, for me, it's about being honest.
And this might well sort of feed into my next question. Recently, you've sort of been sharing some on your personal account, of course, some of the sort of solicitations that some social media influencers have been pitching to brands, and that's that are sort of egregious or ridiculous in various ways. What do you think being a good, in air quotes, social media sort of influencer looks like in 2021? Like sort of in terms of practice, like good,
I I took issue with these people my friend sent me because these people weren't even bothering to write the name of the brand, or they were just sending out mass emails looking for free shit. And like if you are really inspired by a brand and you write a letter, people have been doing that for hundreds of years. There's nothing new there. If you are truly an artist, or you're truly a photographer or a storyteller, whatever it might be. If we want to use the word influencer for these people, that's fine. I just think these people were totally fake, and their followers were fake, and they were trying to game a system for personal benefit that benefited nobody. And to me, especially during this period, we're in this era right now where everyone's hurting, everyone's businesses are out of whack, hospitality is out of whack. Luxury goods and craftsmanship is out of whack. Um, so to be somebody that is trying to defraud these people by saying, "Hey, I can get you exposure in this area," which is, at the end of the day, it's just a marketing decision. So it's not like 20 years ago we didn't have influencers, we had celebrities, we had all kinds of things. We've always had this. But in the same way that if you're some minor movie star from the 1990s who has no who writes a letter to the Four Seasons in Bangkok and says, "Hey, can we get a free room because my client is famous, and it'll be great for you to know that he's staying there." I think that's the exact same thing. It's just disingenuous. Now, if you are at that, let's say it's 1995 and you're Nicolas Cage, and your publicist writes to the Park Hyatt in Tokyo saying, "Hey, we got one of the hottest movie stars in the world. Do you have a discount for him so that he comes and stays with you, so that you can say he's staying there?" That's actually, at the end of the day, that could be a good marketing decision for the hotel. So I trust the brands always to make the right decision because they have to. But if you're somebody who's trying to trick these people, I think it's really disgusting. And especially now when people are really struggling, especially hotels, like if you try to get a free room with fake followers, you've just stolen from those people. And I think that's just theft. It's very simple.
100%. 100%. That's a great answer. And Ted, aside from 1995, Nicolas Cage, which is a fantastic vision, I think his jacket collection speaks for itself. As we bring this chat to a close, what we like to do is ask all our guests for some recommendations. Things they've been listening to, reading, maybe watching, whatever it is. Maybe it's skiing. But do you have anything that you've been enjoying that's sort of been helping you through that you think our listeners would enjoy?
I've really spent a lot of time recently watching documentaries and reading as much as I can, listening to podcasts about Japan post the Meiji restoration, and then right pre-war and then post-war. The way in which Japan accelerated so quickly. It's really, I'm very open about my obsession with Japan and how much I love this culture. But to see the mechanics of how they went from a feudal society in the 1860s, 1870s to an industrialized nation in a matter of years, and then to having to leading the global conversation on technology is really it's just a remarkable story to look into. So I'll send you a link or two to a few like YouTube documentaries that I got into. But I would suggest everybody has a page to take out of the book of Japan. Not to say Japan doesn't have its issues. There's many issues with Japan, but there's so much that Western culture can benefit from, especially the respect stuff I talk about, just the way in which they appreciate life. I think has a lot to teach us. So I would encourage everybody to read up on Japan and read up about the history of Japan and just the beauty of it. So that's my little takeaways: is just get more Japan into your head if you can.
Amazing. Get more Japan. I love it. Well, Ted, thank you so much for joining Felix and I. We really appreciate your time. We'll link everything up we talked about. We'll link up Type 7. We'll link up your Instagram at Ted Gushue. Yeah, thank you so much. Great to catch up. It's been a while.
Likewise, guys. Hopefully, I'll see you down there soon. Maybe this summer I'll come down.
That'll be great.
Yeah, let's meet up in Japan.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, Felix, what a lovely chat with Ted.
What a guy.
What a guy. He definitely, as we said sort of at the start, his Instagram is worth following. His work is excellent. His photography is excellent. Give him a follow, support him. Maybe you can buy one of his prints. We'll link those up.
Well, you can't buy Type 7, so...
You can't buy Type 7, but keep an eye. I think you can pre-order. I think you can probably pre-order it on Amazon or something, or cop a reseller on eBay if you're desperate. But it's pretty cool. So thank you all for listening. Thank you to today's sponsors. If you want to get in touch with us, maybe you want to dish some dirt on Mr. Gushue, tell us who he really is.
Maybe you're Interpol.
Maybe you're Interpol. Maybe you want to. Maybe you're Joe Biden and you want us to help you find the next presidential watch.
Yeah.
But that email address is otthepodcast@gmail.com.
Imagine.
Felix, what is our Instagram handle again?
Well, if you're Fox News and you want to, get some hot takes from Andy on why they need to pipe down about presidential watches, you can go to ot.podcast on Instagram and we'll probably ignore it.
I'm going to team up with Trevor Noah. We're going to take on the world. Thank you to Major Tom Media for producing the show. And if you like OT the podcast, subscribe, tell your friends, neighbours, your sister's brother, or your uncle. We will see you next time.
Bye.